Okay, Kris. So you've had a pretty busy week this week?
It's been pretty busy. I'm glad it's Friday. I'm going to
Yeah.
this organic gardening workshop because I started a garden and I need to know how to upkeep it. I don't want to kill my plants. We got some rain here in Santa Barbara 2 days in a row, like overnight. And so all the plants, they love rain. And so I got to harvest some arugula this morning. It was awesome. I had like a bunch of arugula.
That's so great. Awesome. Yeah, I have a little bit of a green thumb too. I like to be in the garden. It's been super, super hot in Florida. But down in Miami, it rains all the time. So
plants love the rain. I think it's like all the minerals that come in and the plants just kind of soak it up. It's like,
So I was just on
it's
your
like
Facebook.
Korean essence that you put on. It's like that extra.
For sure. So I was just, there goes the train, the bright line. So I was just on your Facebook page and I was looking at some courses that you're offering, and I just wanted to briefly bring that up real quick. I know it's not exactly what we're going to talk about today, but it is about conception and conscious conception, and we're going to talk about that a little bit in the future. So can you tell us a little bit more about what kind of promotion you've got going on?
Yeah, so my friend Aubrey, she is working with some of her colleagues in providing this online format and course for anybody seeking conscious conception. So what that basically means is that a couple goes into conceiving a baby in a conscious way, knowing that your fertile energy is going to be transferred onto your child. And so there's a lot of things that you can actually do to prepare your temple, your body, your jing, your essence, in order for that to be passed on to your child. So it's a really beautiful program. And she's actually, if you use the code Kristen, my name, you get 50% or $50 off the course.
Yeah. Okay. And how much is the course?
I'm not sure off the top of my head, but it's really reasonable for what they're actually providing. Yeah.
And I'm just so that way our audience knows a little bit about what we're talking about when we're talking about the jing, the essence. Why is that so important when we're considering conception?
Well, if you think about jing as the most dense form, let's wait until the train goes past.
Okay, that's what it's like when you're an acupuncturist that travels around the world. You never know. There's so many surprises.
So jing is this really dense form of your matter, and you can kind of equate it to like DNA. It's kind of like that. And so you have kind of two parts of your jing. You have your pre-heaven jing, pre-heaven essence, and your post-heaven essence. And so those two things kind of married and melded together is how you actually vitally live in your life. And so when you kind of have this really good starting point of pre-heaven essence, it puts you at a good starting point to, live your life in like a really healthy way, a vital way. And so if you come into life with kind of like a suffering essence or like a jing deficiency, you can absolutely supplement it with like lifestyle practices and stuff like that, but it's a little bit harder. And so conscious conception is all about the couple really taking into account their contribution into their child's future and really consciously building up their bodies stronger to get their genes stronger so that when they pass it on to their child, they'll have a better, vital life.
Wow. So it's kind of like making an investment.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, it's an investment for your child, but it is really an investment for the world, because when you're consciously conceiving, you're considering not only your body, you're considering sustainability all around, so you do in practice sustainable practices.
Yeah, I really like how that as we continue to move towards living a more holistic life, we're seeing the value in starting to more consciously create and procreate. So I'm glad that you're running that course. That's really important for a lot of, I guess, millennials who are starting to procreate. But let's talk about tracking our cycle and how important that is. That's why we're here today and why I brought you on. Those of you who are just now joining us, this is Kris from Santa Barbara. She is an acupuncturist and she specializes in women's care, reproduction, and, just reproductive care. And I bring her on because there's lots of practitioners out there who have specialties, and I really believe that when we understand as women our body, our anatomy, and we start tracking our menstruation and we start really consciously thinking about conception, we really understand how to have a healthier, wholesome lifestyle. So Kris, how would you like to start this conversation?
Yeah, so the importance of tracking your cycle really comes into, it's almost like autonomy over our bodies. I feel like a lot of women feel slave to their hormones. Like they have no input on how the outcome is. And that's so not true. You have so much input on your hormonal well-being. It's not just a curse. It's not just a burden to have a period and all those symptoms that kind of are associated with it. And we haven't really been taught the kind of the power to actually harness our unique kind of hormonal ups and downs. So one of the important things to remember is that for women, our menstrual cycle, our menstrual blood is an expression of Jing. And so we were just talking about Jing. So for women, that's a true expression of Jing. And so how we care for it, how we harness that, and how we monitor it throughout our lifetime is really crucial in how we live vitally and like harmoniously balance our hormones. So are you still there, Antonika? I think we kind of cut off a little bit. So I'm going to just continue thinking that we're still live. So as far as approaching how to actually track your cycle, there are so many apps out there, and you can probably download one. Flow is a good one. I think there's one called Luna. There's all kinds of different apps that you can download on your phone and kind of keep track your day one. It'll kind of estimate when you're ovulating and then kind of premenstrually. And then all throughout your cycle, these apps, you can actually track like just different symptoms that you might have. And so then you start to gain kind of like this insight into this rhythm that your unique body is kind of going through so that you can approach things more proactively. So let's actually talk about like day one, day one of your cycle, because I get this question a lot. So what is actually day one of your cycle? So a lot of women start saying that they have their day one, like when they start spotting, they kind of start to see like that little pink tinge in their when they're wiping, or some women actually have this kind of brown spotting, and so they mark that as day one. That's actually not day one. That's just a spotting sign that you should record, because ideally you actually want to start your period just when you start your period. You don't necessarily want spotting beforehand or after your period. So day one is actually when you start your flow. It's not the spotting that happens beforehand. So there's a lot of confusion around that. So that's kind of, so that's day one. And so then as you start to track your cycle from day one to your next period, that's the length of your cycle. And so ideally you want the length of your cycle from day one to the next period to be 28 to 30 days, which mimic the moon cycle. So I'm going to pause right now because I don't know if we're actually still live. Oops, hold on just a second. Okay, we are still recording. Okay, all right. Okay, so I think that the next thing we can actually talk about is, so on those apps, you can actually see the approximate time that you're actually ovulating. And so that's like when, of course, you should not be intimate or use protection if you are not wanting to get pregnant. So tracking your cycle is a way that you can take control of your fertility. And it's almost like it's not almost like, it is a form of birth control. You can actually track your cycle, and if it's really consistent, you know exactly when you're ovulating. So you know the days that you're fertile, and you know the days that you're not fertile. So you have that kind of autonomy over your body and understanding your body and kind of reading the signs of fertility so that you can actually conceive or not conceive when you want. And then another really great way or great reason to track your cycle is because premenstrually, a lot of women actually experience a lot of discomfort. And so when you start to track your cycle and start keeping track of your symptoms, you can really like proactively approach those discomforts before they happen, or just kind of nip them in the bud when they start to kind of occur. Like if you start to feel discomfort in your breast, you're like, okay, I need to ease up on my coffee intake because coffee actually makes your breast tissue really, really dense. You can start to incorporate more fiber and hydration and more vegetables into your diet versus like a lot of high protein. So there's a lot of things that you can actually do if you sense those kind of symptoms, instead of saying like, oh gosh, this is like a sign that my period's going to come, and then the period is going to be like awful and dreadful, when your body was actually giving you signs that you can actually do things proactively to have a more kind of ease into your actual period. So, all right. So you're a little bit frozen. Did you have any questions about anything else? Okay. So if you actually, if you prefer not to actually use an app, there's a lot of options to actually chart your cycle in paper form. There's this on Instagram, I think it's called fertility charting. They provide this kind of journal where you can actually chart and color and become like really creative about charting your cycle, if that's kind of more, you know, what you're attracted to. I think she actually sells like these journals that you can actually purchase. Okay, can you tell us? Oh, the foods, yeah. So food is really important during your whole cycle. And I feel like the way that we've been kind of taught to eat, or our nutritional kind of education, is more in kind of like a linear fashion, like eat this every day, you know, consume this every day, and then you'll be healthy. So for women who are menstruating, it's a bit different than that. So you get to a point to where you actually start tracking your cycle, and you start to sense what your body needs at certain times. So if you imagine on your actual period, you are shedding blood, you are losing iron from your body. So what should you consume? High iron foods, so that your energy is kept up and that you kind of even out that loss. And so high iron foods can include like animal proteins, but there are a lot of sources of vegetarian or plant sources of high iron and protein that you can incorporate too. And then as you kind of ease into your cycle, your pre-ovulation, so right after your period, you shed everything. And so now this is the time where fertility really starts to build and your eggs are maturing. The lining is starting to build. So it's like this like building stage, right? This like growth and building stage. So you need highly dense, nutritious food during that time. And then ovulation time, of course, is like this spark of warmth. And so some women actually don't feel that warmth, so you really want to support that warmth. So if you're not feeling that kind of spark of warmth during ovulation, you can support that by eating warm foods, spices, Have a little sake after you eat. You know, coffee is good around ovulation time if you are suffering from not or a little bit of coldness and stagnation during that time where the heat is not able to rise. If you are experiencing like kind of like overwarmth or overheat during ovulation, then you don't necessarily need that kind of support. It's more just kind of like movement and expression and circulation that you need a lot during that time. And then as you get past ovulation and come into your premenstrual phase, so your body does it, it's already built up. It's built up that ultimate yin. And so now it's going into the phase of ultimate yang. So this phase is all about really like lighter foods, like more vegetables. Like I always say, you know, after you ovulate up until your next period, just focus on a lot more vegetables. Increase your fiber intake, make sure your bowels are moving, hydrate a lot more. Like that's really important because since your body has built up so much hormones, you really want your body to be able to kind of metabolize and process them in your premenstrual phase. And that's a lot of the reason why a lot of women experience premenstrual signs, is because they're not actually processing or metabolizing those excess hormones. Yeah. Do you have any questions about that? Okay, endometriosis, how that affects our cycle. So endometriosis, how they actually explain it these days is that it's like a modern woman's ailment. And I think what they mean when they say that is that we access a lot more of that type A personality, which women naturally have. You know, I have it. I don't know if you have it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We both, you know, men and women alike, and anybody who kind of identifies with either or, we have this married combination between yin and yang. When we access one side more than the other, that's when things get out of balance. So for women who are experiencing endometriosis, they call it the modern women's disease because they actually access a lot more of their yang energy, which is a very linear way of functioning, not resting when their body needs to rest, not nurturing when their body needs nurturing. And so the endometrial tissue actually just kind of grows outside of the uterus, and it's not resting inside the uterus where it's supposed to be inhabited. Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question at all. Okay, good. Alrighty. Do you have any more questions about tracking your cycle? There's lots of ways to track your cycle. Oh, that bracelet that you had from doTERRA, that's a really cool way. How can women experience less pain? Okay. Can you still see me on camera? So pain is a signal that your body receives when something is out of harmony. So either something is in the way structurally, or something is building up. There's lack of circulation. There's a kind of buildup of excess cold or heat, or maybe even dampness. You know, you can think of like the Pacific Northwest weather kind of clumping up, or even in Florida, like just like the damp kind of hot weather clumping up. So any of those scenarios is going to create a blockage. So pain is indicative of some type of blockage, lack of free flow. So for women who are actually experiencing pain during their actual period, when they actually get their period, you can take things to kind of ease the pain. There's a lot of herb formulas that can kind of help you through that. Cramp bark is one. A lot of Chinese medicine formulations are classically used for that. But you don't want to depend on those things, because then you're basically in this rhythm of always in a reactionary kind of way where you can approach it proactively to where you don't even need those things in the first place. So to prevent pain from happening, you need to focus on circulation. So a good thing that you can do for yourself is just kind of a self-analysis. Where am I feeling lack of circulation? Are my bowels moving okay? Is my digestion okay? Am I sleeping okay? Do I have pain in my body? There's a lot of things that could indicate lack of circulation. Am I exercising enough? Am I doing like 20 minutes of just kind of something to move my body every single day? And so I would actually say it's better to be preventative versus reactionary, because when you're reactionary, your body is going through all this ailment, it's suffering, and then all of a sudden it lets you know during your period, and then you kind of do this little band-aid fix. And so your body is going through like this push and pull all the time, which is not the healthiest, and we want to be more kind to our bodies. All right, so we can kind of wrap it up a little bit. Okay, so I do have, it's October, so it's Breast Cancer Aware Month, and I teach all of my clients the art of breast massage, because your breasts are intimately tied with your uterus, and this is something that's not taught to us. And so anything that affects your menstrual cycle is also going to affect your breasts. So during Breast Cancer Aware Month, they do promote you to touch your breasts and examine your breasts. But you can go beyond that. You can actually lovingly touch your breasts on a daily basis, massage them with a nice oil, and just connect with your space. And if you actually practice, it's called an inner alchemy practice. It's a women's Taoist practice. And if you practice it every day, it'll have strong influence with your uterus, and you will actually lessen your flow, decrease your premenstrual signs, and you will also decrease your actual flow that you have of your periods. That's really, really important. So I actually have a course that I made with another acupuncturist friend. Her name is Michelle Saizan. And we worked together on making a breast rejuvenation course, and I'll put some information about that. So that's definitely available. And then we also have, or I have, another course where I teach women about their entire menstrual cycle, what it actually means to be inside of each one of these phases, which I call inner seasons, and the best practices throughout the whole menstrual cycle month to approach your feminine cycle in a very kind of, honoring our ebbs and flows. And that one's called Feminine Cycle 101. And yeah. Oh, okay, so on social media, you can find me on Facebook. It's Kris Gonzales Acupuncture. I have a website, myacucris.com. And then on Instagram, it's Kris Gonzales Acupuncture. So yeah, thank you so much, Antonika. All right. Okay, so we will see you at the next talk.